They will not leave disappointed. This guy is unique, special, and we are privileged to be here today.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Philadelphia 76ers during the 2024-25 season. Joel Embiid played just 19 games before being shut down. Paul George, the team's star acquisition in the offseason, played in just 41 games, while standout rookie Jared McCain played in just 23 games before a torn lateral meniscus ended his season. In total, 30 different players suited up for the Sixers last season. They found themselves preying on ping pong balls, and outside of a sneaky good Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin deal, it was a disappointing overall season for the Sixers. Now, heading into the 2025-26 season, the Philadelphia 76ers come into a campaign with zero expectations, an intriguing roster hanging in the balance of the health of a top 5 player in the league. I think there's several different positions you can take with the Philadelphia 76ers, right? The first is their roster continuity. A bunch of talented players are coming back for this roster, but again, it all relies on the health of Joel Embiid. I wanted to start with the guard options here, where you look at Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes. Two of those three are already having a little bit of an issue, right? Grimes is in the midst of a contract negotiation. It seems like he's going to take a 1-year qualifying offer or maybe a 1-year balloon offer, which he pitched to Philadelphia, but he's not getting the multi-year deal I think he envisioned coming into this offseason. And Jared McCain just tore a ligament in his thumb and he should be out 4 to 6 weeks. So the Sixers are already dealing with injuries, right? But when they're all together, when you have all three, you Tyrese Maxey being the third, when you have all three, you have this combination of elite shooting on the outside that can literally carry games, I think. And we haven't seen Maxey and McCain play a lot together. And I still don't think you'll see that because of the defensive woes, but Quentin Grimes fills in perfectly, right? Last season, we saw Quentin Grimes take a step forward as a player, not only just as like a shooter, right, but someone who can put the ball on the deck and attack the basket. Straight line attacks, nothing too crazy. But overall, like those three guys should be a strong anchor for whatever the Sixers are trying to do next season. I like those three. And you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, that's a strong three to start with, right? My problem is the big man unit for Philadelphia outside of Joel Embiid. I arguably think it's one of the worst in the league. For starters, they picked up some nice players, right? I think Trendon Watford is a nice role player at the 4, can handle the position, can shoot a little bit, can defend a little bit. Actually, an interesting passer in some of the assists I watched him play. Jabari Walker was clearly just a victim of a numbers crunch in Portland. Him landing just a two-way deal was kind of interesting, but this is somebody who I think could be a valuable backup 4-man and create an excellent tandem with Watford for the price. The big man that we're going to keep an eye on the most is Adam Bona, their backup center, second-year player. I actually think he's going to be a key part for whatever the Philadelphia 76ers do without Embiid. He's obviously in line to get a ton of minutes thanks to whatever the Embiid process is, whether he plays 20 minutes a game. Obviously, you'll probably not play back-to-back 3 and 4 nights games of that situation. Bona seems like someone that could really take a step forward. You look at the big men group, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's the weakest of any potential team making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, sans Boston. But I like the talent here. So it could grow into something that's a little bit more interesting than I'm describing it, right? And then you look at the wing group, it's like Paul George struggled. He played a lot of 4. I think VJ Edgecombe will see some minutes at the 3. Edgecombe, another one of those talented guards, 3rd overall pick this past year. I think he's in an interesting spot because the Sixers don't exactly need him, but you want to develop him. He's pretty good. And I think long term he'll be a nice fit alongside of a player like Maxey or McCain. Overall, I have the Sixers finishing 12th in the conference, and I feel bad about that because they're more feast or famine to me. They're either going to be the 5th seed in the East and everything clicks, or they're going to be 14th and they're looking at another top 10 pick. All in all, I think the Sixers at the 12th spot in the Eastern Conference represents their inability to project them due to injuries. And if Joel Embiid plays, well, I think they're in line to make the plan. After 6 seasons, which included 3 trips to the Eastern Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals appearances, the Jimmy Butler era was over. Miami was uninterested in re-signing Butler to a contract extension, leaving Butler to let him know, loudly, that he required either money or movement. It took until the final hours of the deadline day, but Miami granted his wish, sending him to Golden State. And for the rest of the Heat players, Tyler Hero made his first ever All-Star game, while Bam Adebayo took a bit of a step back. Heat culture claimed another win in Davion Mitchell, and Eric Spoelstra coached another top 10 defense. But barely sneaking into the playoffs at 37-45 and getting thumped by the Cleveland Cavaliers forced Miami to axe a new but barely sneaking into the playoffs at 37-45 and then getting thumped by the Cleveland Cavaliers forced Miami to ask a new set of questions. Does Miami have enough to compete? And after several failings of adding a third star, can Pat Riley fix the ship? As previously mentioned, Miami remained solid defensively, ninth in the league in defensive efficiency. Offense was 21st in the league, and they were 24th in free throw rate, which is a bit hilarious because Jimmy Butler spammed free throws during the rest of that tenure. But overall, it was just a team in the middle of the pack, right? Spoelstra did a good job at leading the defense, and I still think Bam was good defensively. You've seen guys kind of shuffle in and out. Davion played well defensively. You added like an Andrew Wiggins, who's okay defensively. But overall, this team seemed middling throughout the entire process, right? And the offseason didn't inspire too much, right? They were briefly in the Kevin Durant talk. They were briefly in the Kevin Durant trade talks before re-signing Davion Mitchell. 2 years, $24 million. Good deal getting him back as a three-point shooter and defensive asset. Overall pest and deterrent on the perimeter. I like that. Turning Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson into Norm Powell. Stroke of genius by Pat Riley. Last year, Powell was one of the bigger benefactors of Paul George departing for the Philadelphia 76ers, right? You saw him average 21.8 points, shot 42% from 3 on 7 attempts a night. The Heat needed that. They needed another scorer. He's not the size I think they needed. They needed a little bit more length on the perimeter, especially when you have a guy like Tyler Hero and you have Terry Rozier. There's not a lot of size there, but he's an effective scorer. You can play small ball with him. He's played some 3. It's a good move for him. And then trading Duncan Robinson, who was departing for Detroit, for Simone Fontecchio. I look at that as a buy low on some shooting, a cheap contract, and nothing more. The Heat put themselves in position to do what they've done the last couple of years, right? Which is contend for the play-in spot in the Eastern Conference. Consider me a bit of a fan of Miami's like mid-young core, right? Jaime Jaquez Jr. is okay. Norvel Pell is a perfectly fine guard. They don't have a star in that group, right? Even their most recent draft pick, Yakachonis, the freshman guard from Illinois, big guard, big initiator. Doesn't seem like an athletic marvel, but someone who's a little bit more craftier than you think. I think those guys are pretty good. The two young players that intrigue me, however, are Kel'el Ware and Nikola Jovic. I like Ware. He flashed a bit of everything as a rookie, even an outside shot. He was good defensively at the rim. I wonder how Ware and Adebayo fit defensively long term. I like to think that Ware could just be an active all around, deterrent, while Bam is more focused and clean around defensively, can make all the screen reads and can kind of cover on the pick and roll. All that good stuff that made Bam to this day one of the best defending bigs in the league. Ware still has some time to go, but he can be that shot blocker. I hate to compare him to Hassan Whiteside, right? But kind of where it's like Bam is more technical. Ware could be a little bit more active, more defensive events, whether it's steals and blocks. I'm interested to see what his overall offensive upside is, because lob guy can get rebounds, offensive rebounds and putbacks. Shot a couple threes, made a couple threes, looked good. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, but I think he can be fine there. As for Jovic, I just think the last couple of years it's been health that's been the issue, right? He does a bit of everything. He's a good playmaker. He can shoot a little bit. Not the most athletic player in the league, but a good defender, smart, high basketball IQ. I would love to see Jovic, Bam, and Ware together, just because I think the defensive impact of that group could be pretty interesting long term. But Jovic has to stay healthy, right? He's been injured the last couple of years. Last year wasn't really his fault. I think he got hurt preseason, which lost him a couple months. But overall, like, this is a really talented guy, and I think the one thing that intrigues me about Miami is those two players together and what they could do for Miami. Ware averaged 2.8 stocks per 36 minutes as a rookie. Per 36 minutes, what intrigued me about Jovic is the 4.1 assists. Just another guy who can put the ball on the deck, create shots for others. Both are valuable, right? I don't know what the upside is if they can't play together, but if I'm Miami and I'm trying to do something to balance this roster out, if I'm looking towards the long term, Ware and Jovic are two players that intrigue me right away. To close up, I want to talk about Pat Riley and ultimately can he save this roster, right? Because the Jimmy Butler trade didn't net much of anything in terms of long term assets. You don't really have a star young player. You have a Tyler Hero extension that you're kind of wishy washy about. You lose a draft pick last year to Oklahoma City. You lose a future first round pick to Charlotte. I'm curious to see what Pat Riley does from here, right? Because all the things Pat Riley has done in his tenure is constantly rebuild the Heat, make one or two moves that saves them, right? Even if you look back at like the Jimmy Butler situation, he went and got Jimmy Butler after Butler and Philadelphia couldn't really quite agree to things. I don't think that opportunity's there right now for the Heat, right? It comes up for Pat Riley to be able to make a move moving forward to figure out how to get this team to take another step. I think Bam is more than capable as a number two. I think you have talented young guys who can take step fill gaps and take steps forward in the event of you getting a star. But there's no free agency, right? Like, you're not going to get a top level player in free agency anymore, and the Heat's assets are lacking. So I think one of the bigger subplots of the Miami Heat season is going to be, can Pat Riley do it again, right? All in all, I look at the Miami Heat and I just see a team that is missing a piece or two. They could very well make the play-in, right? They have the roster to do it. Eric Spoelstra is good at coaching. You have a bunch of decent role players, right? But ultimately, I think for what this team wants to do, Pat Riley and the Miami Heat have to get a little bit more aggressive, right? I don't know what player that could be that takes them out of that play-in doldrum, but I don't see it on the horizon. On the other hand, Miami has a bunch of expiring salary between Norm Powell, Terry Rozier, Andrew Wiggins. I think that's about 75 million. You have your picks post Charlotte trade. I think the Miami Heat are the 11th best team in the Eastern Conference. They can very easily make the play-in, but a lot of the intrigue that circles around the Miami Heat works with their future and what Pat Riley can do if, for the fifth decade in a row, Pat Riley can find a star, put him on the team that he's on, and help them become one of the top teams in the conference. If the Kristaps Porzingis illness put the Boston Celtics' chances to repeat on the rocks, Jason Tatum's Achilles tear closed the door on one of the best basketball teams in recent memory. The Boston Celtics finished 61-21 last season, second in the Eastern Conference to the Cleveland Cavaliers, with the second best offense and the fifth best defense in the league. Peyton Pritchard won the Sixth Man of the Year, and the Celtics were on a good position to represent the Eastern Conference in the finals. Then, Tatum's injury occurred against the Knicks, throwing everything into a tailspin, turning the 25-26 season to one rebound away from a second-round series loss to the Knicks to an essential gap year, attempting to make the best of the season without their top five player. What does that mean for Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and the rest of the Celtics? Before we start, just a note about how good the Celtics were prior to this offseason, a testament to how good they were. Second in the league in offensive efficiency, fifth in defensive efficiency, last in pace, but first in three-point rate, second in turnover percentage, and a juggernaut on defense as well. Second in opponent effective field goal percentage and opponent free throw per field goal attempt. The Celtics lost quite a bit, but for a reason, avoiding the second apron for another season. It started with Drew Holiday being traded to Portland for Anthony Simons and a second-round pick. Simons is a fine offensive player, terrible defender, and still just 25 years old. The Celtics then moved Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta in a three-team deal that included the Brooklyn Nets and Atlanta Hawks. Boston took back George Niang, who Boston then flipped to Utah for rookie R.J. Lewis, and just like that, the Boston Celtics ducked the second tax, entering their gap year. The first thing I look at with Boston is their quartet of backcourt players, which is set to lead this roster, right? Anthony Simons, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown. Pretty good. Simons is probably the scorer of the group along with Jaylen Brown. Derek White does a bunch of everything. Peyton Pritchard. I put Anthony Simons as the starter on the graphic, but Peyton Pritchard obviously is going to be the starter. More experience, it just makes sense. Simons is someone I look at and think that they're going to trade at some point. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later. But overall, I think that's where the Celtics are going to have their strength. Is you're going to see their guard play take over some nights and just win them basketball games. And Jaylen Brown has an opportunity to be that lead de facto offensive threat. I think Pritchard and Simons will be able to get off offensively just by attacking opposing defenses the regular season. You should see that. Simons doubles as what I will qualify as a bit of a nuclear shooter from the outside, so you're not losing that ability to just bomb a bunch of threes like Boston did the previous year. And Derek White's a bit of a do-all guy for them, right? So you look at those four. If the Celtics are going to try to make the best of their gap year, it's going to be those four players playing well this upcoming season. But ultimately, in a gap year, the thing I'm most interested in is, can Boston find other pieces? Where I look at with the Celtics is the fact that they lost Holiday, they lost Porzingis, they lost Al Horford, they lost Luke Cornett. So they essentially, when you add Tatum to that injury out for the year, they essentially lost their entire front court. And Drew Holiday, you lose some defensive versatility in the backcourt. I'm curious to see what the Celtics do with these young guys that they have on their roster. They're not really all that young, but they're guys that are getting opportunities, right? Like a Jordan Walsh has been in the Boston ecosystem for about 2 years now. Maybe this is a year where he gets some more minutes. They signed Josh Minot from Minnesota, who I kind of like. Still like 22 years old. Has things to figure out, but he's like versatile, can play two or three positions. I want to see if he can take a step forward. Baylor Schneiderman, their draft pick from last year, already 24, 25 years old. Curious to see if he can do anything for this roster. And Namus Keita, their center, they added him from Sacramento a few years ago. He's been in the system for a couple of years. Has played well for Portugal during the offseason. I'm curious to see if that can translate into valuable minutes as a starter this season. They have Chris Boucher, who I think is going to start. But I would like to see him get some more minutes and see if there's anything there for Boston. Ultimately, I have the Celtics here at the 10th spot because I think it makes too much sense for them. It makes sense to sell the idea that they can still make the playoffs. I would lose out, but it also keeps them in the position to get a top pick, right? Something Atlanta did a couple years ago where they finished in the play-in spot, lost, and then they got the number one pick to acquire Zachariah Risache. I think the Celtics understand that Tatum is coming back from a very serious injury, and while he ramps up, I think they're going to sit him. I think they trade Anthony Simons and get a piece or two back for the long term. I think Brad Stevens is a guy that's been there for quite some time. In his tenure with the Celtics, I don't know why I said Sixers. In his tenure with the Celtics, they made the conference finals 6 times. They made the NBA finals twice, and they won a championship. I just don't see the Celtics saying we got to value this year to make the playoffs. I think you keep afloat, see what's going on in the conference, and when it's time to pivot, they'll pivot. Something similar like what the Utah Jazz did the last couple of years, where little too close, let's trade a piece, let's get some guys away, and try to ultimately focus on the long term, which is Jason Tatum returns, keep your guys healthy, maybe consider a Derek White trade if there's a Michael Bridges level package out there for you. maybe consider trading Peyton Pritchard if the price is right, but ultimately trying to figure out how you can edge everything, kind of curve everything in the development process for the guys you have now, add a couple of key pieces moving forward, and get back to where you were with the Jason Tatum era. You may not get to those same heights right away, where you're the best team in basketball for 18 months, but maybe you get the right pieces and maybe you can start looking at contention again within a year, maybe two. And at that point, Jason Tatum is still like 27 years old. You still have a couple of young pieces you can flip and rotate. And the Celtics could get back to doing what they do best, which is being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I have the Celtics as the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they want to contend. I see them doing the best they can to mask that and then get a lottery pick and essentially get another young player in there to help them for the long term.